Good evening. This is Congressman Nick Langworthy, and I want to thank you for joining me here tonight. I hope by now that you've been able to join us for our monthly telephone town hall series where I call you, the residents of New York's 23rd Congressional District, to give you an update on what's going on in Washington and hear your questions directly about what's on your mind. But for those of you who are new to the program, welcome. Before we get started, if you have a question, press star 3 at any time tonight, and we will get you in the queue so we can get to as many questions as possible. Again, press star 3 if you have a question. As you likely know by now, last week the House of Representatives delivered a major victory for the American people with the passage of H.R. 1, the Big Beautiful Bill. This landmark legislation is a cornerstone of our American First agenda and is the hallmark of President Trump's administration, and it marks a turning point in our fight to rebuild a safer, stronger, and more prosperous nation. H.R. 1 tackles the greatest challenges facing our country: inflation, open borders, government waste, and a stagnant economy. It puts hardworking taxpayers back at the center of federal policy. It extends the current tax code. It drives down costs, and it reignites economic growth. This bill delivers permanent tax relief for working and middle-class families like the people of the southern tier in western New York, a secure border and tougher immigration enforcement, massive expansion of American energy production, protection of Medicaid for those who the program was designed for and genuinely need it, and a full-scale crackdown on fraud, waste, and abuse. We do all of this while protecting the social safety net for our most vulnerable, including seniors, people with disabilities, and struggling families, children, pregnant women. They are protected in this. At the same time, we are restoring accountability and uplifting the dignity of work. Just as President Bill Clinton championed in the 1990s, we are advancing smart, common-sense welfare reforms that say if you are able-bodied, without dependents, or other extenuating circumstances, you should participate in a modest 20-hour-a-week work schedule, training, or volunteering community service, any of the above. It's about fairness, it's about responsibility, it's about helping people move from dependence to opportunity. Some of the key reforms that will help the residents of Western New York and the Southern Tier include a new provision: no tax on tips. You earned your tip, you should keep it, period. No tax on overtime. We are helping the men and women who put in long hours, pick up extra shifts, and keep the country running. No tax on overtime means hardworking Americans keep more of their earnings and will help our country's businesses be more productive on the world stage. We expand the child tax credit. We have a new credit for seniors on Social Security that will help them live a better life in their golden years. We have tax-deductible interest on American car loans. Families will be able to fully deduct their auto loan interest from American-made cars. We have a 400% expansion for our state and local tax deduction. That's really important for New Yorkers because we pay way more than our fair share in state and local taxes, and that was capped at $10,000 in terms of a deduction in the prior tax code. This will expand this and give more tax fairness for people from high-tax states like New York. President Trump and I believe in an America where families keep more of their paychecks, jobs stay here at home, and government works for the people, not for the elites. Families can expect to receive $7,800 to $13,300 more back in their pockets. This bill reflects that vision, and it begins the great American comeback that voters demanded last November. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get any cooperation on this bill. Not a single one of my Democratic colleagues voted for this legislation, and rather than engaging in a fact-based debate, they have resorted to fear-mongering and misinformation and political theatrics, and we'll get into that tonight. I'm sure, there's going to be a lot of questions. We've certainly heard, some people, some very, noisy folks in our district that have had, press conferences and the like about this kind of misinformation, and I'm really looking forward to digging into that tonight. We saw disabled individuals exploited in our committee hearings to stoke outrage over a bill that doesn't cut a single dime from disability benefits. I've said it before and I'll say it again. H.R. 1 does not cut Medicaid for American citizens who are eligible. This includes pregnant women, children, the elderly, and the disabled. Democrats continue to choose politics over solutions, obstruction over progress, and we are also up against a very critical deadline. If Congress fails to act, the tax code, as we've been living under since 2017, will expire, and the average American family will see a $1,695 tax hike. And we're not going to let that happen. Instead, we're looking to provide further tax cuts for the middle class and the working class and make them permanent. I just want to give a few breakdowns before we get into the question. If we do not extend the current tax code, we will have in our district, these are district-specific numbers, 65,260 New York 23 families will see their household's child tax credit cut in half. That's money directly out of their pockets. 95% of New York's 23rd district taxpayers would see the guaranteed standard deduction cut in half. 39,000 small businesses in New York's 23rd district would be hit with a 43.4% tax rate if the 199A small business tax deduction expires. Businesses will fail. 8,926 New York 23 taxpayers would be impacted by a return of the alternative minimum tax, which hits New York families harder than almost any state in America. And 5,534 family-owned farms in New York 23 would have the death pack exemption slashed in half for next year alone. That means the legacy of a strong family business that's been in place for generations will go away, and they will be forced to sell the farm because the and those that are left behind after a farmer passes will not be able to afford the legacy taxes associated with it. This fixes that and makes it permanent. We have a lot of people jumping in the queue. Again, press *3 if you would like to ask a question tonight. I have a poll question for you that we want to put out there. Do you support a work requirement for able-bodied people that are of working age for the Medicaid program? Not disabled, not those seniors, but able-bodied working age people. Do you support or oppose a work requirement on those people in Medicaid? If you press 1 if you do support the work requirements on able-bodied people in the Medicaid program. If you oppose it, press 2. So 1 for yes if you support it, no if you oppose the work requirement. So look forward to seeing those numbers. We are going to start with Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi. So specifically I wanted to talk today about H.R. 1. You were doing a lot of talking about it and how great it is. But I'm in Lancaster here. The median household income here is $61,000, or I think it's actually 64. I think it's 64 now. It's gone up recently a little bit. And according to the big, beautiful bill, that would put most families here, there are people obviously making less and people making more. That would put most in a third quintile. They'd see their taxes reduced by about $815, which isn't nothing, admittedly, but it's not exactly a ton of money. But if you're in the highest tax bracket, it's really interesting. Your tax burden, if you're making $5 million almost, I think it's like 4.4. Your tax burden, is lowered by almost $400,000. I think it's almost $400,000 on the dot. It's like $390 or so. Do you think that's fair that the richest among us should get the most advantage out of this bill? That really seems messed up to me. Doesn't that seem messed up to you? Because it seems messed up to me.
Well, this is a continuation of the. Well, are you going to talk over me, or are you going to?
Yes, I am.
I know you're making a speech here.
You're going to talk about Trump's tax cuts and how you wanted to continue them because they're so great. But it's funny because the tax cuts that is put forward by Congress every time always helps the richest people the most. How about we let rich people continue to pay their taxes because they got plenty of money, but we lower the tax burden for the poorest? Because, mind you, I was talking about the third quintile. If this bill goes through, the first and second quintiles will see their tax burdens increase by almost $1,000.
I disagree with your numbers. I appreciate
No. This is by the CBO. This is by the Congressional Budget Office. This is Congress. This is y'all. Y'all put these numbers out.
This is
the CBO.
You're the CBO. I'm going to talk now because I've let you talk.
You know what? I'll let you go ahead and talk, but you can't argue these numbers. These are from the CBO. I'm not making these up.
I can argue a lot of numbers that the CBO has put out, because they were completely wrong on the projections in 2017, and you know that. I mean, because the numbers don't.
No, they were not. They were completely accurate.
They were absolutely completely wrong on the projections.
You guys always say the economy's going to grow by 5%, but it doesn't. Tax cuts don't grow the economy.
No one has put 5% growth potential into this bill. That's just not accurate at all.
Bottom line is the richest are getting the biggest tax cut. Do you think that's right? Do you think the wealthiest people should get the biggest tax cut?
What is enough? Do you want 100% tax bracket or 90% or 80%?
I'm fine with my taxes the way they are. You're going to burden
and we're going to keep your taxes exactly the way they are. You're going to get a tax increase if we don't pass this bill.
I make $120,000 a year. 120. I'm doing great. I could pay a little bit more in taxes. I'm concerned about the poorest among us, the people who aren't making $120,000 a year. How about
the poorest among us pay no taxes? Actually, the poorest among us pay no federal taxes. The poorest among us have an earned income tax credit. Period.
Yes, I'm aware of how the tax brackets work, but they pay their taxes.
Distribute money.
They get it refunded back. We should not be giving the wealthiest among us the biggest tax break in this budget. To me, that just says that your priorities are helping the wealthy.
I think we've gotten your point. You would like to see there be much higher tax brackets on.
You don't need to reduce. You don't need to reduce the tax burden on the wealthiest. They're doing fine. You can look at any metrics anywhere. The wealthiest people in America are doing great.
If you want to throw a wet blanket on the economy and kill jobs all over the place,
I think Trump's tariffs are going to do a good enough job with the wet blanket.
Okay, I think
that's another tax that everybody pays. By the way, is Trump's tariffs.
I appreciate your call, and we're going to get on to our next caller. Okay, there was a lot there to unpack. Clearly, the caller would like to see much higher tax rates on the higher earners. I think it's very important that we continue the current tax code. The current tax code has been in place for most of the first Trump term, all of the Biden term, and now it expires on 12/31. We're fighting hard to continue that tax code so that we have tax certainty for the businesses and especially the small businesses that are concerned. They're worried about investment in their businesses. They're worried about, what sort of liability that they're going to have going into next year. And that's why we're working overtime to make sure that this gets done. So we're going to go on to the next caller today, and that is Bonnie.
Hello.
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi.
Where are you calling from tonight?
I'm calling from North Boston, just outside of Hamburg, New York.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. What's on your mind?
Okay, so I've got a couple of things. I was talking to your screener, so I missed part of what you were saying, but I did not vote for Trump, and yet when you say things like Democrats are putting party above country and things like that, and there's always those sorts of comments, that always – I wonder if you know that offends people out here that are in your district, and I'm one of them because, I'm an independent, but I just feel like when we're, using names and stuff like that. So here's the thing I wanted to ask you. First off, a lot of Trump's policies have adversely affected our region, your area, and yet I never hear you oppose anything. I never hear you say anything. It's more like you're just in line. We talk about putting parties.
Well, let's get into specifics. What
Well, for example, all
it's
the
hurt our
rhetoric
district.
about Canada, and I know at some point you sort of talked about it, but I just want to know, in your opinion, what are the things that are happening right now with this administration that you are not happy with? Not the things you're happy with. We hear all the time about what you're happy with. What are you not happy with just about our region? And secondly, just another question I had is about the amount of pardons that are given by President Trump to people who are do tax evasion or fraud. And I just wonder what your feelings are about that. So the first thing is, what are the things that you're not happy about with the region, and what are you doing to address those things? And secondly, what's your opinion about the pardons that he gives to people who are convicted of fraud, tax evasion, those kinds of things?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for calling. I mean, there's I think that there's, for people that are opposed to President Trump, they obviously see the world very differently than those that supported him and voted for him. I really haven't seen anything that's adversely affected our region. Canada has been an uncomfortable topic. We're obviously neighbors. I treasure the relationship with Canada. They're a valued ally. But we're also at a pivotal moment. They've just gotten through their own election. We've now had their prime minister come and meet with President Trump, and there's trade negotiations going on. President Trump has played hardball with the rest of the world on trade, and we're apparently going to see some more trade deals coming out this week. I think that's a good thing because America's been taken advantage of for a very long time. It's a little uncomfortable being a border community because it's just as common for me to probably go to Ontario as it is to go to Pennsylvania, as it is for everyone on this line. But we should be pursuing a strong, fair bilateral trade agreement with Canada that eliminates a lot of the burdensome tariffs that Canada opposes on U.S. imports that we do not put on Canadian exports. This agreement, I think, should strictly be between the U.S. and Canada, and it should exclude Mexico because we have two different standards of living at the table. Canadians and Americans have a very similar standard of living. Mexico doesn't. And in this, the era of continent-wide trade deals, I think, has passed, and I think we're entering a era where we need to have individualized trade relations with different countries. President Trump floods the zone with information. It's tough to keep one single item in the news cycle. And I think that is something
but not always accurate information either. You have to admit that.
I will say that, a lot of the information that's in the media is also not accurate. There's a lot of information that was in the previous administration that was not accurate.
I understand that, but can you just answer this question about that? I mean, and you said that you haven't seen any impact, but I know the last month somebody was talking about Chautauqua. I actually taught in West Valley and was a principal in West Valley for years. And Ellicottville has been really impacted by Canadians who don't want to have anything to do with us anymore. So you must have seen that. That's affecting,
I've heard from a couple of Ellicottville had the strongest season it's had in years because we had a lot of snow. It boomed
way
actually.
Before all the other stuff happened in January. Let's be honest.
There were lines in Ellicottville.
I know. I'm a
skier.
I ski there, and I know.
I don't think businesses lost a trick this year in Ellicottville. Canadian tourism. It also depends on the dollar. The Canadian dollar is very weak right now.
Yes.
And when their dollar is weak, they spend less money in the United States. Just like we spend less money there when our dollar is weak in Canada. You don't hear anyone say they're going to go shopping in Canada because obviously the dollar is when our dollar is weaker, we don't go up there. When now you can get some good bargains. So
over here to spend money, and now a lot of them are not because of that. But okay, so I get that. But can you answer the question about all the pardons that are beginning?
I think I'm not going to get into line by line, but I think the pardons are something that used to come up at the end of an administration, and now they seem to be a regular thing. We'll look at them on a case by case basis. I haven't really I know there was some celebrity he pardoned today in a former congressman. I haven't really spent any time researching the case, and I don't really know the circumstances in it, or how much time that person served in jail for their crime. But I know he didn't pardon any of his family members on the way out of office in the first term.
Okay, so I get that. So once again, like, can you just talk about this instead of like?
Pardons
can you
are a power of the presidency that are given to any president, and there have been unsavory pardons offered by every president.
All right. So, but knowing that you have Democrats and Republicans and independent people like me who are in your district, could you maybe just, like, I got a very nice letter from you yesterday, but can you, when you're doing the flyers or whatever, can you just maybe treat all of us like we're all your people instead of just people who are Republican or who maybe voted for Trump? That's just because I always feel badly when you say things like that, because it's like you're representing us now.
When I spoke about Democrats in my opening statement, it was about Democrats in Congress. I mean, what we've heard, and I guess maybe I should have said Democrats in Congress. I'm not passing judgment on any particular constituent, but
that's
Democrats
in
Congress.
Democrats
in Congress.
Flyers or whatever. I just want you to be a little more sensitive about that, maybe, because
I appreciate your comments tonight, and certainly value the time that you've spent with us.
Thank you.
I will take that into consideration. It's a highly charged time in Washington, D.C., and it's unfortunately kept score by the media in like a sporting event, and it's not how public policy is. I actually get along with many of my Democratic colleagues, and we work together on legislation all the time. It's not stuff that you're ever going to see on the news, and it's not stuff that the paper is going to cover because it's not interesting to them. All they want to do is draw the things that divide people. But when we're doing something like budget reconciliation, it is a single-party exercise. All Democrats will oppose the budget reconciliation because this is a legislative instrument used when a president comes in with a Congress that's of the same party in both houses. Otherwise, it doesn't work, and it avoids the threat of a filibuster. So that is what we're dealing with right now, and it's a highly charged political time where partisanship is probably at its highest levels in a long time. But we will get through this. We're going to extend the current tax code and put some more provisions that help our middle and working class. And I believe we're going to see serious positive economic growth out of this extension. So I really appreciate you being with us here tonight, Bonnie. And now we will go to Charles. Hello,
Hi,
Charles.
Hey,
hi, how are you?
I'm
Thanks
great.
for being with us.
How are you? Well,
Doing
thanks
great.
for taking my call. I'm calling because I do want to talk about the Medicaid issue. And just to start out, I wanted to say I'm a strong proponent of expanding health care coverage to New Yorkers, and I'm very proud of the fact that the number of uninsured in the state is at an all-time low. And with regard to Medicaid, in your district alone, 1 out of every 5 people is on Medicaid. So this is a huge issue, and you got another 33,000 individuals that are on the essential plan that are benefiting from the premium tax credits. I heard while you were, you don't want to cut a penny from Medicaid. You want it to go to the people that deserve it. You're going to go after, able-bodied adults who refuse to work. You even cited the welfare to work under the Clinton administration and people who, got employed as a result of that. But I just want to say I was involved with all that stuff back in those days, and the work requirements were coupled with a ton of assistance, comprehensive worker training programs, child care, transportation. None of that is included in this bill. And I just want to say one other thing. It makes it sound as though there's all these people that are abusing the Medicaid system. The Kaiser Family Fund said that 92% of people who are on Medicaid for health insurance are already either working, and they're working in low wage jobs, gig economy, or they have otherwise receive exemptions, so many of which you cited, ill, they're caregivers, they're disabled, or they're enrolled in school. I just want to say in Arkansas, they did this work requirement issue. It was the work reporting that got people screwed up. And that was they did this for only people aged 30 to 49. And within a very short period of time, over 18,000 people lost their coverage. They didn't lose their coverage when they looked back and said, oh, what happened to these people? They lost their coverage because they couldn't handle the work reporting requirements, the onerous paperwork requirements, and that is confusing, burdensome requirements. Now we're going to do this with folks that are age 19 to 64. This is going to be a disaster, Congressman, and it's going to be a disaster for people in your district. This is going to put so much pressure on social services departments that are going to have to do all this kind of screening twice a year. It's going to be costly to administer. And yes, I know when we say, oh, that 29-year-old guy who's sitting on in his parents' basement playing video games all day, that's the person we think about. But it's the person in the rural communities that don't have access to broadband, don't have maybe transportation. They're going to have to get to the social services department. They're going to be confused. It's going to be your office. If this thing goes through, Congressman, and your office is going to be inundated with calls from people who, I'm working. I did. I couldn't get to the social services department, and they threw me off. There's going to be so many people who are well-deserving, should be eligible, are working, meet the requirements, but these reporting things are going to just throw them off like they did in Arkansas, and it's going to be a disaster. Not to mention, there's no money for the states or local social services departments to pay for any of the infrastructure that's going to have to go to track all this down. So, I don't know. I just think.
Well,
Charles,
I appreciate your call tonight and your opinion, and thank you for being with us. This is about fundamental fairness. If we make no changes to these programs, they'll collapse under their own weight. I mean, this program was created by Lyndon Johnson in the 60s to take care of the absolute most vulnerable. And when Obamacare came in, it created a catch-all and expanded Medicaid beyond the traditional population, which is children, pregnant women, impoverished seniors, and the disabled, and added anyone over 100% and under 138% of the poverty line. If people do work, the working poor, nothing changes. They continue to get their traditional Medicaid benefits that they've received. They're considered the expansion population put in by Obamacare. New York, as you all know, spends more on the Medicaid program than either Texas or California, which have far more people in them. And we don't have better outcomes. In February, State Controller Tom DiNapoli revealed that a state audit uncovered $16 million in improper Medicaid payments by the state of New York. In that report, the state controller, who is a Democrat, even called for the need to improve the process for Medicaid claims in New York. This is going to help us make sure that people are actually eligible for the program that we're paying for. We definitely have people on the rolls that don't belong on the rolls. Another key component of our legislation is stopping illegal immigrants from accessing Medicaid. This program certainly wasn't designed for people that have come into this country illegally to come to a state like New York and get on the Medicaid rolls. Our precious tax dollars need to be there for the most vulnerable and need to protect those populations, not because you chose to barge into the country and didn't follow the immigration laws of our country, and that there's going to be free health care for you. Every dollar spent on illegal immigrants coming to this country to take free health care is a dollar taken away from the people that the program was designed to take care of. And yes, I know our district has a large Medicaid population, and I've worked extremely hard within our conference as this bill was crafted to protect New York the best I possibly could. Because there are people I serve with in the Republican Party that want to take a butcher knife to Medicaid. And there's a lot of, figures. I mean, we obviously had a target of $880 billion in cuts from the in savings found in the Energy and Commerce Committee. And that number sounds staggering. But when you look at the case over the decade, we're going to spend $9 trillion on this program over the decade. If we do nothing to preserve this program, it will collapse under its own weight. There's unsustainable growth in areas. And for all the people that want to talk about draconian cuts, at the end of the decade, we're going to spend 25% more on Medicaid than we are right now. So we're slowing the growth of this program, not cutting it completely. The misinformation that has been put out there by some of my colleagues from the other side of the aisle, I'll be generous with the terminology here, is staggering. The lies that have been told. I mean, Chuck Schumer literally went to a nursing home in my district and looked seniors in the eye and told them they were going to get kicked out of the nursing home. I mean, that is hyperbole that is dangerous. And there's no one in the Republican Party that is working on this legislation that is going to stand for that kind of an outcome. We are preserving the program for those that it's intended for, period, end of story. In 2023, Health and Human Services audited 14 states and identified more than $249 million in payments for deceased enrollees. We have to clean up the books. We have to make sure that the people that we're paying for coverage for are actually eligible, that they're not registered in more than one state, which happens a lot in the tri-state area between New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. It happens all the time. The common sense changes that we're making, a work requirement so people do have to report in, and we're really asking for 20 hours a week in community service counts. We're asking people to try. And this will be the compassionate hand up as we take care of people. It breaks that cycle of cradle to grave dependency on government. So we can agree to disagree. I certainly understand your concerns, and we have to work to preserve the program for those that need it the most. Let's go to Bob next.
Hello?
Hi, Bob. Where are you calling from tonight?
I'm calling from Elma, New York.
Hi. Thanks for being with us. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm at the point of age where I'm getting close to being able to get my Medicare, but companies call you nonstop 8-10 times a day, and they use spoofing numbers to try and sell you Medicare Part C and D when you're not even eligible for it. Is there a way to stop these companies from continuously hitting people up? I've been spoofed where it even said Bank of America called me, and then it's a recording. Yes.
I have not heard that in particular. I'd like someone on my staff to give you a call when we're off the line so we can get more into your specific situation to kind of find out what sort of calls there are, because there shouldn't be, especially as you're aiming it at seniors, there shouldn't be a predatory style telemarketing that goes to our seniors because someone's trying to sell you a bill of goods on a phone call and try to get you to make a snap decision, and it's just wrong. But I'd like to look into that a little more. I mean, it's now you're still a few years away from enrollment?
No, I'm just at the. This has been.
You're
going
just
on
at
for
the enrollment age.
Yes, I'm just enrolling. I turned 65 in August, but they've been calling me for almost 2 years now, and I try and block a number, and then it's a new number comes in an hour later, and then you block that one, and then it's another number, and sometimes, like I said, one time my phone actually said I was calling myself, that my number popped
Oh my
up.
gosh!
It must be like a random computer generating system that they use
sending
to
you
make
your own
calls.
caller ID. Well, I'm going to have someone on my team give you a call so we can maybe get a little more information from you specifically without doing it with 7,000 of our closest friends on the line right now. But that is something that should be safeguarded. We shouldn't have these kind of predatory calls, especially because you don't know who you're dealing with in the age of identity theft. I mean, the thieves are more creative than the companies, and you want to make sure that you got your guard up anytime you're dealing with, people on the telephone like that. So we will be giving you a call offline. Thank you so much, Bob, for being with us here tonight. Next, we are going to go to Karen. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Hi, where are you calling from tonight?
Elma.
Okay, thank you so much for being with us. What's on your mind?
Thank you for having me. So my question to you is, how does the Office of the Congressional Budget come up with their numbers? Because, for example, under Joe Biden's plan of the Inflation Reduction Act, they said that it would decrease our debt, which obviously it didn't. I think it went up by $4 trillion. And now they're coming out and saying that Trump's is going to increase it by $4 trillion. How do they come up with this amount of whether it's going to increase or decrease?
Well, CBO is something that I think needed some reform for some time, as I talked about, and obviously had a little bit of a disagreement with our first caller. CBO scoring on the 2017 tax package that President Trump passed in his first term before I came to Congress was off by $1.5 trillion in terms of what the net effect was on the country. They were wildly off, as they were wildly off with the projections on the Inflation Reduction Act and many of the things in the Biden years. I mean, these models fail to account for how tax rates change and affect, the amount and the timing of businesses and workers' decisions. And you've seen all these projections that, this many people will lose this under the plan. It's just making a decision for people.
So why do we even rely upon it then if they're so inaccurate?
Unfortunately, in the budget reconciliation process, we have to have an independent scoring agency, and it's the only one available. So this package, even though CBO scores it in the way that they do, I believe will lead to even greater growth than any of the projections because they have been so historically wildly wrong. And it's something that I know the leaders in both the Senate and the House are fed up with dealing with CBO because I'm not accusing them of lying, but their modeling clearly hasn't been historically accurate, especially as you look at the IRA or the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which was President Trump's first agenda. But the governor of the ability to do a budget reconciliation and not be subject to a filibuster is the Senate parliamentarian. They insist on using a scoring agency, and the only admissible scoring agency is the Congressional Budget Office. So we're somewhat held hostage to use them, but I do think there needs to be some modernization there. I mean, we want fair and accurate numbers, but they're often very inaccurate. And, ultimately things have to play themselves out. You see, either bad or worse. I mean, you see how much more the Inflation Reduction Act programs have cost the country and how much more growth was created by the Tax Cut and Jobs Act alone should be enough to draw any doubt. So I don't put a lot of stock in these numbers, but that is how the bill has to be compiled. So if they score it, that's what we have to go by, and that's how we can assess what can go in or out of the bill. So thank you so much, Karen, for being with us. We really appreciate your support. Next, we're going to go to Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. Sorry about that, Kathleen.
That's okay.
Oh, thank you so much for being here with us. Where are you calling from?
Cornell.
Oh, okay. Thanks for being with us. What's on your mind?
Well, I guess I need a little clarification. The windmills and the solar farms, Kathy Hochul is pushing very hard on those things. And I noticed that down in this area, which is really some of the most beautiful area in the state, and we're being dotted with solar farms and windmills, and there seems to be more conversation about that all the time. And I just wondered, will this continue down here at this rate? Does the federal government have any play in this at all to stifle her agenda a bit? Or, and if so, will the existing solar farms and windmills be disassembled and taken away? I'm just not clear on everything. And who actually reaps the benefit of what we have?
So, very good question. It's something I've been railing on for a long time because I view, and I presume this is your opinion, I mean, there's a predatory nature to this on our areas that are down on their luck economically. And what Governor Hochul did is enact laws that kind of blow through local zoning and these green energy projects. They've eviscerated our ability to get community residents together to stand up and stop these things as you would have in other times. When I was a congressional staffer back in the early 2000s, we had a lot of our communities having windmill wars, and particularly in Wyoming County, which is not part of my district, but was of the district of the member of Congress I worked for. A lot of those towns had those internal arguments, but it was up to the local officials. And I personally, I'm not a proponent of windmills or solar farms. They certainly have a place in the overall scheme, but they're never going to be more than kind of frosting on a cupcake to the entirety of what our needs are for the energy grid. But what I have a problem with is you taking, good agricultural lands, and because a farmer might be down on their luck, they could sell that land to a solar farm creator for a lot more money. And the problem is you could have built your dream home 2 doors down, and a year later there's a solar farm 2 doors down from you. And that's nothing that someone wants to live next to. Local zoning laws would have prevented that. Instead, we have the state, which has usurped that authority and said that they can just build these green energy projects. And we're seeing a disproportionate share come into districts like ours. Tough economic circumstance, not a lot of growth, and there's people that, especially in ag areas, they may not have an idea of who in the next generation of the family is going to take over the farm. It's worth a lot more to the solar developer than it is to someone that's looking to get into farming, and that's an unfortunate circumstance that we've seen. And Governor Hochul, everyone needs that is concerned about this needs to speak up to their state officials. I know that you'll have great agreement from our team in Steuben County, Senator O'Mara and Assemblyman Sempolinski and I had a lot of conversations about these. I believe in local zoning. If your local town wants these and the town officials vote for them, well, I accept it. But just because some company cuts a deal with somebody, that doesn't mean that's right. And I believe that local control being missing from this component is just dead wrong. So I'm in agreement with you on this. Unfortunately, the state has a lot of power in this circumstance. I mean, Kathy Hochul's the most, by charter, the New York governor is the most powerful governor in America. And they have, set the table for all these green energy solutions and policies that don't follow the technology or the practicality of where we're at this point in technology. And they think we're going to just solar panel and windmill ourselves past the need for natural gas power plants or new nuclear power plants where it fits. And they can continue to take things offline, and as long as we have windmills and solar panels, we're fine. So I agree with you completely on this. It's something I speak out about fairly frequently, and we need to have more people speak up on this as it relates to the way things are going in Albany.
Yeah, I really wish they would because, like I said, we have some of the most beautiful rural area down here, and down Canisteo area.
I represent one of the most gorgeous districts in America. And, you know, the natural landscape we have is amazing.
It is.
And
it
is just something that, you know, we can't afford to just exchange our rural landscape for a bunch of boondoggle projects, because the problem is, this is all well and good when you set them up. Who's going to be there in 20 years when the thing needs to be decommissioned to take it out of there? Same with these windmills.
That's right.
I mean, these fly-by-night companies are going to be out of business, be in bankruptcy, change names, and the local taxpayers and property owners will be left holding the bag. And they're predatory on small town rural America, and it's alive and well here in New York. So thank you for being with us, Kathleen. I really appreciate your call tonight. And next we're going to go to Robert.
Hello.
Hi, Robert. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I am doing very well. Thanks for being with us. Where are you calling from?
The tiny town of Willing, New York.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us.
Out here in Allegheny County, the poorest county in New York, poorest county in your district. My wife and I are both senior citizens. My wife's about to go on Medicare, but we're both on Social Security. And I wanted to ask, I had two questions, really. One is about Social Security, because what are they doing to work on, no tax for Social Security? Because I get killed. I think it's laughable that I work and I don't get a living wage and they tax me on my Medicare, on my Social Security. I'm sorry.
And your costs keep going up, and obviously the COLA doesn't keep up with the cost of living in this country. The Ways and Means Committee of the House tried very hard to find a way to pay for the entirety of no tax on Social Security. They could not get it in the bill because it costs too much to put it in there. What they did get in this bill is a $4,000 seniors tax cut that will go to make a lot of seniors, probably in your situation, whole. So you will get tax relief on that. There's a great benefit to that. So if it's two filers, it's $8,000 if your husband and wife in the same circumstance. So that is something that should come in great handy. I'd really like to see us try to pursue a full no tax on Social Security, because I think you've paid taxes your whole life on this. I think our seniors in their golden years, they depend on Social Security. They shouldn't get taxed on it. They should be untaxable income. Unfortunately, under budget reconciliation, we have to make this number come to zero at the end, and they couldn't fit that in with the other provisions of the existing tax code that had to be. So that's why we put the $4,000 per individual, $8,000 per couple provision in the bill that will bring relief to working seniors, and we need to do more. Because I feel very strongly about it. We have a very, a high propensity senior district, and in your golden years, you shouldn't be having to pay taxes on this if you decide to work. If you decide to continue to work while you receive your Social Security, you should be saluted for it, not penalized more.
Right.
So there's some relief here, but we don't get quite all the way in this bill. That's one area where I really wish we could have gotten the full way there, but under the constraints of the budget reconciliation, they can't put the full no tax on Social Security in this bill. But I'm sure it's something that the president will, continue to work on. It's something that he campaigned strongly on, and I have co-sponsored the bill in the House, which is separate from this, that we should go all the way on it.
Right, sir. Okay. Secondly, I wanted to ask you, in line with what the other caller from Hornell was saying, we do live in a very beautiful area out here. My home, it's a beautiful start of Amish kind of area. But I just went to our local, it was a local town hall we had regarding property reevaluations. And 4 years ago, I paid for a house built, 120-year-old house, I paid $94,000, and they're trying to tell us that the average home in my little town now is worth $195,000. There's no way I'll get that in any universe with what's in and around our little area. What they're trying to tell us is that they took I don't know, and I did ask a question, I didn't get an answer, of how do you differentiate between farmland, which we have big swaths of, residential and business, to incorporate, how much taxes we should be assessed. And I moved here, like I said, and I made a significant amount of renovations to the house just to make it livable. I had to put a new roof on. This house had no air conditioning, blah, blah, blah. I spent over $25,000.
And under the reevaluation, your taxes went up greatly.
I won't find out till May, but I don't know what's going on. And in line with what you were saying about taking advantage of urban communities, believe it or not, and I don't know if they vote or not. I don't know if you can tell me, do the Amish have a right to vote?
Yes, they do. Many of them choose not to. It depends on which part of the Amish.
Most of them don't, because I didn't see anybody.
Right. I mean, a lot of the Amish that we have in the western part of New York don't. In Pennsylvania, they came out with authority. I mean, those that are of the Mennonite sects are a little more participatory. I mean, it really depends on their religious beliefs, if they do or they don't. But they are American citizens and they have the right to vote. Most just choose not to. But the local rezoning is something I really don't have a jurisdiction on. I know it's something that's very tough. I urge you to call your council members and your town supervisor and give them an earful if you don't feel you're being treated fairly. And there is an appeals process once that comes out that's kind of outlined in the law, and the assessor can walk you through that as well.
The only thing I wanted to say was what I heard was they were not blaming, if you will, but saying that the Amish were buying up a lot of the property around the area, paying over price,
And they're trying to base it on the value, the higher values. I see what they're saying, but But I think you could make a strong argument as to what the recent sales have been. But if you want to call our office to have a little more specifics on your situation, we can help maybe point you in the right direction as you go to combat that.
Right.
Just give our office in Corning a call, and we'd be happy to help you with this or anything else in any way we can. So thank you so much for being with us tonight, Robert. And we're on to the next caller. We're calling Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hi. Thanks for taking the time, Congressman.
Absolutely. Where are you calling from tonight?
Vanetton.
Okay. Thanks for being with us. What's on your mind?
Just two things. You might not know off the top of your head, but I was a little concerned. It was stated to me today that it was taken out of the bill, but I don't know that for a fact. Maybe you could enlighten me on that. So I'm a mail carrier, full-time mail carrier of 15 years, and there was going to be a change to the FERS where they take where they take the 3, and they were going to make it 5. Is this still going to remain 5, or has there been some motion?
I would be happy to go into this because I'm a member of the Oversight Committee, and it is a pretty narrow jurisdiction, but postal employees and federal employees fall under the Oversight Committee.
Right.
The way this was discussed with me in the beginning was this was going to be on new employees going forward, where they were, instead of taking the high 3 years when figuring an employee's retirement, they were going to figure in high 5. And when you looked at what people contribute towards their retirement, those that were hired before 2013 paid 0.8% of their gross income towards retirement. This would have changed that to 4.4. If this was for new hires going forward, I'd be okay with that. But then at the 11th hour, when the bill came for the markup at the committee, it applied to current employees. And I oppose that. And if you look in the rolls, I chose not to go to the markup. I told my chairman, I said, I am opposed to this, and I am not going to vote for this because I don't feel that you should. I don't believe you should have a bait and switch on employees, especially if someone's at or near retirement age or within you can see the sunset at the end of the road. You shouldn't be penalized like this. You've made plans. You've done your financial planning around this. I mean, you had a contract essentially from the government, who's your employer, and I thought that was fundamentally unfair to do to people that were in that circumstance. For new hires, obviously you got to get more in line with the private sector, and. So I did not vote for it in committee, and then I worked behind the scenes to get that taken out of the bill. So we took out completely the change for current employees on the 0.8 to 4.4 contribution rate for those employees hired before 2013, and we got rid of the high 5 language altogether.
Yes,
so it will be maintained at a high 3. And those hired before 2013 will stay at 0.8% contribution to FERS.
That's fantastic. Thank you for clearing that up for me. I just heard some rumblings while on my mail route today, and I was pretty excited to hear that it would remain at 3, and that's fantastic news. I hope it stays there for good. But on just one other note, from a constituency perspective for you, I know it's going to be an adverse effect, and I'm sure you're aware of it. So there's going to be a consolidation of offices that's going to be occurring in Elmira quite soon, with approximately close to 100 routes, give or take, in one office. And I know consolidations have been done elsewhere in other states, and I know Utica had done that. I think the Binghamton area might have done it as well. I wasn't affected by it. I'm still going to remain in my small local office just out on the fringe. But it's come to my attention that sometime in June, once this consolidation thing occurs, the effect that it will have on me and my customers is that when I pick up their outgoing mail and I pick up their parcels, and I have many people that send out parcels every day. I think I probably had 150 parcels that I picked up from residences today to be sent out. Those parcels will not be going into an afternoon dispatch to basically get in the routine and start moving. Those parcels now, because they did away with evening truck pickup, I don't have to be back to the office now by any certain time, because guess what? There's no truck that's going to pick up what I'm bringing in. These parcels that customers are sending out, letters that they're sending out, go the following morning. The truck will pick up the following morning in an attempt to basically, I believe, do away with evening drivers, evening trucks as a cost savings stretch, I guess. So in essence, rates haven't changed. Customers are still paying the same rates, and their mail basically is delayed by upwards of 12 hours or more. In essence, having a day added onto their transit. Some customers are aware of it, some aren't, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. If you start hearing from constituents that are mailing things out, they could have a bit of a delay. And if you could just, I don't know, just stay privy to that and some other things that could occur.
Well, we will. I fought pretty hard on the consolidation where they were going to move a lot of the processing equipment from the Buffalo office to Rochester. It was so ludicrous that you would have had someone mail a letter in Clarence. It would then go to Rochester to come back to a recipient in Clarence and add a date of delivery, and they said somehow that was going to make it better. We have to preserve our postal service. It's obviously expensive to do.
Right.
I appreciate the work of the Postal Service. We have to modernize it. Obviously, email communication has changed everything, but it is a vital service, especially in our rural communities. And, we really have to put a lot of different proposals on the table and really look at what makes sense going forward. Is 6-day delivery necessary? These are things that the public has to answer. I mean, obviously, a lot of people get their medications through the USPS. Amazon packages go a lot through the USPS. Things that people, depend on are there. But some of these consolidations don't make any sense. And if it's intentionally doing something that's going to make poor delivery options to save a few pennies, is that really in the best interest? I think they tried with some big metro areas and it's failed. So now they're going to look at some rural areas. So I obviously, as I told you, I sit on the oversight committee, and I'm going to have a lot to say in that committee when we're waiting to see who the next postmaster general is.
Yeah, and I'm happy you're on that. And I'm very happy that you were involved in getting the 5 perspective back down to 3. I really appreciate that as a mail carrier, and a lot of my coworkers do as well. So I'll let you go, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate you. Bye. All right, next we're going to go to John. Hi, John. How are you? Hi, John. Where are you calling?
Pretty good. Orchard Park.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. What's on your mind?
I got a couple of things. I know everybody's talking about Medicaid and that. I have a plan, and you might want to think this over. Instead of just kicking people off Medicaid, why not make them pay a little bit, say like $100 a month? Instead of getting it free and clear. I think a lot of people would be willing to pay $100 to get the coverage they get now for free.
I mean, that's an interesting proposal. I mean, what we did put into the bill allows states the states administer the program. So the federal government basically sends pots of money to the state to cover a 50% share of the program. New York decides to cover every single possible coverage area for Medicaid. In many ways, Medicaid would surpass a lot of people's private insurance. And what our bill allows is states to add a copay for certain services. Now, they can make the copay a penny, but it limits the copay at $35. So states will decide how they do that. The noise that we've heard from people on any changes to Medicaid, the doomsday scenarios that people want to lay out, I just reject. There's, people that are currently working aren't changed. I do think that we have to look at where the long-term costs are here, and find creative ways. In a co-insurance could be a way to look at that. But obviously, we're talking about people in the traditional population are under 100% of the poverty line. For that expansion population, which they certainly don't make a lot of money and are still the working poor. $100 might be out of reach, but some level of accountability, making what I look at this as a first step, making sure that the people that are actually eligible are the ones on the rolls. That is something that's very important. Putting a common sense work requirement in that people, if you're getting free insurance, that you're trying to do something to move the ball forward, because as one of the previous callars that, certainly fundamentally disagreed with me and my positions on that, and that's his certainly right to do, felt it would add to bureaucracy. Well, we got nothing but bureaucracy in Albany, so they've just got a different job to do now. But we want to see people, take steps to improve themselves. If they're on the system, if there's a way for them to go and engage in worker training. Every business I visit needs employees right now. That's what I hear constantly, is there is a lack of willing applicants. We are going to ask people to join the workforce in this.
I don't want to interrupt. I'm sorry. That wasn't my main question, but thanks for answering it. My main question was the budget, and I'm sure you're well aware that the U.S. government, their credit rating was downgraded because of debt, the national debt.
Deeply troubling. Deeply troubling.
Yes. And I'm a big fan of President Trump. I voted for him for 3 times. He's been great on the border. He's been great in everything except this budget. I mean, it doesn't balance. Really, you guys, and I vote for you all the time too. You really got to balance that budget. Is there any hope of ever balancing, or are we just going to default this country because we can't go on just piling up debt? I mean,
the national debt is the national debt should keep everybody on the line tonight up at night, because we pay more on the basically the credit card interest on this country than we do on our national defense, and that's a totally unacceptable metric. And you know what you're starting to see is our bond auctions are going sour. I mean, people understand that we're past the tipping point, and that's why we have to have pro-growth policies. You can't cut your way out of this. You have to grow your way and cut at the same time. What we've seen with DOGE, we have to codify. You know, we have found savings across the federal government. There's entire sub-agencies that have gone away, and no one's life has really been all that impacted here in this country, unless you were a recipient of some of these programs, that most of which no one voted for. I mean, I certainly when they started peeling back the layers of the onion on USAID, I was as aghast as anybody, because I was sold a bill of goods that this is an organization that provides aid and humanitarian medicine, food, you know, and when you find out that you're doing things like, you know, paying for transgender surgeries in Burma, that's not what I voted for. And in an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, I voted against cutting their budget by half. And I feel completely hoodwinked by the administration that was there in the past. What the organization claimed it was doing and what it was really doing, we would not have known but for the DOGE effort. I completely agree with a lot of my colleagues that we need to expedite making some of the DOGE cuts permanent and put them in, and that comes in the appropriations process. The budget reconciliation is not the place where we can do that. Appropriations is.
Okay. Well, I wanted to add something else. The defense budget, President Trump, I'm really disappointed in this. He raised the defense budget over $100 billion. He's got to cut that. And as you know, there's so much waste in the Defense Department. It's obscene, really. And DOGE really needs to get in there and clean house. Because every time they get a new...
They should be audited. They should not be free from audit. I'm totally in agreement with you that we do need to look into every department. You know, there should be no sacred cows here. We should not be allergic to accounting or accountability. And the Pentagon should not be exempt from that. We should be proud of our military spending. We need to take care of our troops and their families, and we have to have the best fighting force the world has ever known, because obviously, you know, our adversaries are there, but there are certainly areas of waste at the Pentagon, and that needs to be addressed as well. I'm in full agreement with you. So,
yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, actually, they do audit the Pentagon. They failed, like, I think it was the five audits in the last 20 years. They fail every time. There's like $1 trillion missing in the Pentagon's budget over a decade, and nothing ever happens. So, I don't know. I don't think you're on that committee.
I'm not on the House Armed Services or on the Appropriations Committee, but it's something that I think we all need to be deeply interested in. So I hear you loud and clear, and we're going to be looking very closely at this appropriations process. I think the President's put out a budget that, you know, I think outlines some serious changes to the spending priorities of this country. It does take in mind a lot of the DOGE cuts, and we need to, you know, this was a once in a lifetime exercise that's taken place, and we've got to now make it law. So we're almost out of time here, John. I appreciate you being with us. Appreciate everybody being with us. We're going to give you one more shot at our poll question. Do you support a work requirement for able-bodied working age recipients of Medicaid that are not disabled, you know, don't have dependent children? Press 1 if the answer is yes. Press 2 if the answer is no. If you do not support the work requirements, press 2. If you do support the work requirements, press 1. and we're going to take one final caller before we finish up here tonight. Why don't we talk to Lonnie?
Oh.
Hi, Lonnie.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Where are you calling from?
From Gary, New York.
I just drove through the other day. I was down doing a Memorial Day parade in Jamestown. What's on your mind?
Right. I was wondering, the gas prices in Jamestown compared to Buffalo are 30, 40 cents more, and we're all getting it from Warren, the gas. So I'm kind of curious as to why the gas would be so much more in Jamestown area. And
it's a good point. And I noticed that at the gas station, I was kind of blown away because I think I filled up at about 309 in the Buffalo suburbs, and as I drove down, I saw something about 336 or something like that. It seemed out of whack. So I think it's time that we start asking some questions there.
Yeah, the other thing I was wondering about is Trump was kind of running on, trying to straighten out the budget and, balancing the budget and all that kind of thing and paying down the national debt. And then I hear that this budget that's going through is even bigger than Biden's. I don't know if there's a race to see who can spend the most money or whether you could try to explain a little bit about why we're going in higher spending when we're supposed to be cutting it down,
Well, the budget reconciliation that we're doing right now is not the appropriations process. Fiscal year 2026's appropriation process is underway right now. What this budget reconciliation is setting up is an extension of the current tax code and adding on a few new tax provisions. Obviously our detractors want to say that, we're spending more money. Everything goes up, though. I mean, that's the one thing you got to keep in mind is the prices to do the same existing things go up each and every year. Even with our reforms to Medicaid, for instance, which we've talked about a lot tonight, we'll spend 25% more on Medicaid by our savings plan than the program costs now. Now, what would, doing nothing cost? It'd probably cost 100% more. So we're looking to find savings department by department. Costs are always going to go up, but it's just a question of what growth potential is there in terms of our economy, the revenues that the country brings in. The president is extremely bullish on tariffs and in leveling the playing field in our trade agreements, and that's something that I think we've got to give him the bandwidth to do those negotiations on. But at the same time, we have to find savings. We have to treat this more like a business. I mean, I know it's not a business, but we have to, treat it more like a business and treasure each dollar as a real dollar. Unfortunately, in Washington, the mindset is, unless it's $1 trillion, people don't pay attention. They started to slough off $1 billion. I mean, imagine how many people in Chautauqua County's tax returns you have to put together to get to $1 billion. You can't get there. But it's lost. The mindset has been lost in Washington D.C. that this is real money. I hear colleagues often say it's only. Well, how many people in your neighborhood's entire federal tax liability do you have to add up to get to $2 million? I mean, it's a staggering sum, and we have to treat that money very differently because Washington's lost its mind. And, we actually have a president in a Congress that's focused now on counting and accounting, and they're not afraid of that. And we have to do better and be better stewards of the taxpayer dollars. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Is there any chance that before Trump is out that they'll actually pay down some of the debt like he
we have to get to a balanced budget, and we have to we can't just cut our way out of it. We have to grow and cut at the same time, and finding these savings is important. Doing what DOGE has done is important to getting there. Where we cut out the waste, fraud, and abuse, but at the same time put common sense policies in place that will actually grow the economy and increase revenues. We want people to pay more taxes because they've done better, not because the government is punitively coming in and taking more of people's hard-earned money. And we've certainly heard a variety of opinions on the call tonight. There are people that just are of the mindset of tax the rich, tax the corporations, tax the wealthy, and that's the cure to all of our problems. You can't you can't even get rid of this national debt if you taxed all of them at 100%. It doesn't work. We have to grow the entire economy. We have to make sure to continue to increase everyone's standard of living in the process in order to get there and to get us closer and closer to a balanced budget. So staff is telling me that we are going to get cut off here if I keep going, but thank you for being with us, Lonnie. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the conversation tonight, and I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us to hear all of the things that are on your mind. I've appreciated the conversations, even though some of us, can agree to disagree. But listening to what's on your mind is very important, and it helps me be a stronger representative. It is truly the honor of a lifetime to represent this district in the halls of Congress. And we have a lot of big challenges to tackle, both for our nation and for our region in Western New York and the Southern Tier. And I'm honored to work towards solutions that will help residents and families and businesses all throughout our region. Our door is always open. Please know that you can call any of our offices. We have an office in Corning. We have an office in Olean. We have an office in Jamestown. We have an office in Clarence. We have our office at the U.S. Capitol in Washington. No problem is too big and no problem is too small. You may have a problem with your Social Security or your Medicare or your veterans benefits. We're here to cut through that red tape. And we're very proud of the work that we've done. And we've got a world-class staff that's done a great job helping constituents cut through that red tape, get to the bottom of their problems, and solve their problems. So please call us anytime. If we couldn't get to your question tonight, we got through as many as we could. But if you weren't able to ask your question, you could stay on the line after this call is over and leave a voicemail for my staff or myself, and we will get back to you and address your concerns. But again, thank you for joining me. Have a great rest of your evening. God bless the United States of America. Have a good night.